All right, let's keep going with the story of Christopher Columbus. If you remember, last time you read that the natives of the islands were very friendly and they traded with Columbus and his men. They thought that they had fallen from the sky. The islands were different from anything the sailors had seen. As they looked down into the clear waters, they saw fish. They were blue and yellow and red. On the land, they found snakes and lizards and more brightly colored birds. Still, Columbus went on, looking for Marco Polo's lands, looking for gold. On Christmas Eve, the chief of one of the islands asked Columbus to bring the ship to a place that was nearer to his house. Columbus tried to do this, but the Santa Maria ran aground on the sandbank and was dashed to pieces by the waves. The admiral and his men were saved. They went ashore in boats, and then the Indian chief sent canoes to unload the ship. When Columbus went on shore, he gave the chief a shirt and a pair of gloves. While all this was happening, Columbus had lost the Pinta. He thought the captain of that ship had gone off by himself to look for gold. There was only the Nina to go back across the Sea of Darkness, and the Nina was the smallest ship. But the admiral must go back to Spain with hammocks and parrots, gold, and snake skins for Ferdinand and Isabella. He left some of his men in charge of the fort they had built from the boards of the Santa Maria. So although the brave ship came to a sad end, she became part of the first building made by white men in the New World. Columbus said goodbye to his friend the Indian chief, giving him another shirt and getting more gold in return. Then the Nina sailed for Spain. Before long, the Pinta came back to join the Nina. The captain of the Pinta did not seem very able to explain where he had been. There was now a good deal of rivalry between him and Columbus. The admiral refused to believe the captain's stories. On the way home, there was such a storm that Columbus was afraid the Nina would never reach Spain. He was also afraid that the Pinta would get there first. So he wrote a letter to King Ferdinand telling him everything that had happened, and then he wrapped the letter in wax, putting it in a barrel and threw it overboard. If he never reached Spain, the barrel might float ashore, and the letter would tell his story. The Nina did reach home and got there before the Pinta. Bells rang, and there was a great celebration. People crowded the streets to see the admiral and his men. Columbus went before Ferdinand and Isabella, taking with him Indians that he had brought from the New World. Ferdinand and Isabella were pleased to hear of the islands that belonged to them, but a little disappointed that there was not much gold. Columbus went across the Sea of Darkness 4 times, and each time he found more land. On his 4th voyage, he touched the coast of what is now called Central America, landed and talked with the Indians there. Why did he not go farther and find out more? We do not know. He was growing old, and his eyes were troubling him. He said that the men on some of his ships were tired, and he did not want to make them go farther. The great explorer never really knew that he had found a continent that was not a part of Asia. As for India, it was a Portuguese captain who first found the way there by sea. His name was Vasco da Gama, and he sailed the other way. Instead of going west across the Sea of Darkness, he sailed south around Africa and east to India. There he feasted with Indian princes and brought his ship home laden with silks and spices. India was quite different from the islands of Columbus. The king of Portugal and the king of Spain signed an agreement that their sailors would not get in each other's way when they were exploring. This divided the world into 2 halves. The Spanish might explore in the western half, and the Portuguese in the east. This is why, in the early days, nearly all the explorers who came to America were Spanish. They wanted to look for India or Cathay. They had to sail west. The great treasure hunt was on.